Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a quick video on basically the top three. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. We'll work out if we can think if this is going to do anything significant up or down, or if we're just going to be kind of like trading a boring range. My overall expectations of this is that there's going to be a consolidation, but at the moment buybacks have been extremely strong and they continue to be strong. So this is Bitcoin on the daily chart, still holding above all major moving averages, specifically the 10 exponential, which is the important one, in which we've come down to test this just today. A few hours back. So in that respect, still bullish on the long term there. Until this breaks and we get rejections from beneath it, I'm basically no reason to say that we're going to come down to meet these levels at any time soon. That is, like I say, not a call. I'm not saying I'm bullish. I'm actually not saying I'm bearish either. What I'm saying is that at the moment we are still holding up with the ability to possibly try and hit that $20,000 mark. So long as these aren't invalidated, then yeah, the consolidation is postponed. Until they are invalidated, then we can start talking about lower targets, all the way down to around about 13,000. But short term, as in like literally right now, this dump took place. Obviously bought straight back up, which is what Bitcoin does. We've been rejected here in the center of the Bollinger Band. No big deal, to be honest with you. And on the 15-minute chart, let's have a look at that. We are being rejected on the 50 exponential moving average, but still quite a decent buyback already. Obviously, this is what we expect from Bitcoin at the moment. There's still a lot of moon boys, there's a lot of FOMO going in, there's basically a lot of attention on Bitcoin, so no one really wants to miss out, but you know, the party will end at some point. This also corresponds to this chart. This is the Dixie chart. The Dixie, basically, if we have a look at this is the 15-minute chart. It basically is dying, and it's dying, and it continues to die. We had a bit of a it doesn't look like much, but it's a pump. So this is about an hour ago, and that I suppose would correspond to the dump that we had with Bitcoin. So these two charts are very, very much intertwined, and it's the Dixie which is leading these moves, because in my opinion Bitcoin is topped out. I think it needs to consolidate. I've been saying that for about a week now. A consolidation is likely and it needs to happen, but if the Dixie keeps dropping like this, then it won't happen. It will allow Bitcoin to continue up, and obviously if Bitcoin reaches certain levels like $20,000, then it can basically move on its own, because certain precursors need to take place in order for a pump to then continue. At the moment we're kind of drifting around in like a no man's land area, and most of this move, or the price at the moment, is dictated by the price of the dollar, and the Dixie is dying a death. And a brief look, we looked at this yesterday on the monthly chart. We're basically breaking down beneath this 200 exponential. This is a monthly chart, so the last time we did this was down here, January 2018. Do you remember what happened in January 2018 with Bitcoin? I do. It died. It died massively. No coincidence that this comes in at the same time. So a massive decline in the dollar value, allowing all commodities, stocks, cryptocurrencies to massively inflate, just as what's happened recently. But then, you know, when the dollar decides it wants to recover, then the opposite will take place. And you know, there's two things going on there. I mean, Bitcoin had reached the end of its cycle. It had to go into a consolidation phase for a whole year anyway. This was just like insult to injury, okay? So I'm not expecting that to happen now, even if the dollar were to bounce from this level. Historically though, we do often get a decent bounce from this level, but the chart is different. It's very different. This is back here. We were much lower zones here, golden cross here, and basically because this is monthly, it basically has a continuation of that. It would have continued up, probably could have continued up, it wasn't for the COVID situation, which basically brought it all the way back down again. So it does look like we might have a little bit further to go, but you know, if you were to look at this on a statistical standpoint, there is a very strong chance that we do have a little bounce here, even if it is back up to these areas around 9150. That would be probably, you know, well, that's the bottom of that zone there, and probably an area where I'd expect a rejection, at least for the short term. So if we get a pump, we will get rejection, I imagine, from those zones. But for the moment, you know, it's massively oversold. doesn't mean that it's going to pop up. There's all kinds of fundamental reasons for it to go down at the moment and continue to go down. Now, there's been an underwhelming response for stocks in major indices, so they're the ones that normally benefit a lot from this kind of behavior with the Dixie, and they've not really reacted a great deal. Yeah, they are making higher highs slowly, though. They're not doing it at the same speed that they were a few months ago. In fact, I would have expected to see rallies across the board with the S&P, the Nasdaq, the Dow Jones. I've not really seen that. All I've seen as a result of this is FX markets, with fiat currency pairs. They're the ones that are benefiting at the moment, obviously, because this is a fiat currency. Anyway, we'll move off from that. So this is just something to be aware of. We could bounce, and we may bounce from this zone here, and that again will add insult to injury if Bitcoin decides that it has to give it up and start to consolidate. The consolidation would likely take place, so in a bit more of a dumpy fashion, rather than a cooling off, steadily stair-stepping its way down. So that's one thing to definitely be aware of. So if we're thinking about that, and we've got to bear this in mind on the long-term time frames, where would that likely take us if that was to catch a bounce, and if we were to break down beneath the 10 exponential? Then we basically have to measure these areas down. So breaking down below, well, we'll call it from the 10 exponential. So areas of 18,600 we'll call it 18,700, right? If that gets broken and we close beneath there on a daily, then yeah, we can start talking bearish moves. And the next step would be down to around about this level here, all the way back down to about 16,000. In fact, that looks very much, yeah, it is exactly where we found support at this blue box zone here. Now that is also where the green 50 exponential is on the daily. So 16,165, we call it 16,200, would catch a bounce there out of pure default, definitely. And that bounce would be bought up, I imagine, to be quite a lucrative long at that level. Now it could also bounce from the top of the blue box to 16,500. That zone would be a buyback zone, but then I would be very cautious about when we approach these levels, which would be the center of the Bollinger Band or the 10 exponential. So creeping our way back up to and just above 18,265, 18,666. But again, these are moving averages, so they move every day. So these zones today will be different zones tomorrow. So if that were to happen, and we'll transfer this knowledge over to altcoins, let's just say we broke down to that level, just the top area of that zone, that is a 13% drop. That is nasty. We would expect that to at least be doubled on some of these altcoins, especially with XRP. So we'll be looking for a doubling of that move. So we can measure that out now. We can work out where this is likely to fall down to if we were to break down underneath that zone. In fact, looking at XRP now, it does not look good at all on the daily. So we will double that zone. So what was that, 13,000? Was that 26,000? So we could be looking at areas that are dropping below 40, about 44. So just below the wick that we already dumped down on that last occasion. Bitcoin is higher than XRP is at the moment, as in their ability to reclaim certain territories. And actually, if you look at this, it does look a lot worse. I mean, it's holding on for dear life on this, but as you can see, the slowing down of this this moving average now is not negative, but it's getting tired. If this starts to get a negative slope on it, then yeah, that's basically a confirmed consolidation, because at that point, the major support that we're holding on this daily chart is facing down, and that is basically the definition of consolidation. Still holding above decent moving averages, but price going down incrementally as a result. So we'll be looking for areas like 44 cents, I'd say, for XRP if that were to take place, and that's just the first step. Obviously, if we went all the way down to 13,000, I would expect not a full retrace, but the prediction I had after this pump took place, which is this is going to consolidate and it will essentially bring us down to reaccumulate at the 200 exponential, currently at 29 cents. Don't worry, that will move up. If this consolidation takes place the way I think it will do, it will allow this time to move up. You'll be looking at areas like lower 30-cent zone though for XRP, and don't worry about that. That's not a big deal. That's not a problem at all. Watch my XRP market cycle video and it will explain all, and you will understand that actually that is the way we're looking to play this. Okay, we're looking to play it for these big pumps. We're looking to sell off towards the top. We're looking to wait for it to reaccumulate down at the 200 exponential moving average, wherever that might be. And it could be, I can't give you a price target. it likes these exponential moving averages. This is a great chart to trade long term. We trade this one long term, okay? We spot this out on a daily or a weekly for the signals, then we pick it up, we ride it up, and we get out, and then we forget about it, and then we re-enter. That's the way to play XRP, okay? For at least for this period of time, okay? At least for this period of time. So that's the way I see XRP. Now this is bearish, definitely that's bearish. This is a fine mess, really. It's difficult to explain. But other than that, you know, we currently are above all sort of moving averages of any importance. And if we do start dumping down, we'll be dumping down to sort of areas like 50 cent, 40 cent, and then, you know, essentially, you know, into the 30 cents. I'm not a bear, by the way. I'm certainly not a bear. Just to let you all know, I'm not a perma bear. We've been trading this market all the way up, all right? But when you've traded it all the way up to potentially the top, there's no other place to trade it than all the way back down again. So just to put that out there, I'm not a crazy bear. I'm not a bear, you know, but I like to trade every move as best as I can and spot where I think it's going to go on a reasonably long-term time frame. So don't shoot me for saying, oh, I'm not a bear, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a bear, come on. But when you reach the top, there's only one way to go. Anyway, we might not have reached the top, by the way. I'm just explaining these circumstances right now where we could potentially be at a top, so we've got to look at downside targets if we really want to make any money. Ethereum, basically a replica, a carbon copy almost, in fact a little bit more bullish in fact than Bitcoin in its charts presentation, but essentially it's doing the same thing. So we had this recovery here, all-time high here, coming down 10 exponential, holding above that. If this breaks down and we come down, this just amplifies Bitcoin's move. So if Bitcoin went down, what was it, 13% did we say? We'd be looking at perhaps maybe about 20%, maybe 18 actually. That would be a decent area. So we're looking at this green 50 exponential perhaps as the buyback zone if this was to break down and fail. Potentially we could be supported above here. I'd imagine a wick breakdown below there, and the buyback zone would probably be between we could safely say about $500, to be honest with you. Safely say $500. This hasn't yet turned bearish. This actually is kind of bearish divergence to an extent, but it's not confirmed. It's very young, it's early, and would take a bit of time to confirm that further. But again, you know, there's a lot of things at play here. Now let's have a quick look briefly at Blockchain Whispers, and you know I like to do this just to see where the sentiment is on these three exchanges. And yeah, people have gone long. This was about 66% long as that dip was dipping, but this morning it only started at about 68, so now we're above that now. So there's more people have taken on longs, and yeah, I mean the longs always outweigh the shorts, and they have done for pretty much all year, to be honest with you. And this does show a decent opportunity now at that level. 70 and above is reasonably strong. Below 70 shows kind of weakness, to be honest with you. And if you look, it's not so much about the percentage, it's about the amount that goes into it. So we got, you know, almost $500 million there, and just about under $250 million there. But that doesn't mean anything, because these longs can get closed and these can get liquidated. But most of these have been placed right up at the top, so I wouldn't expect to see these drop off until we start to break the upper areas that haven't been seen yet. So we're talking about 21,000, 22,000. That's the sort of situation that would allow it to move up to 25,000. But again, we're not looking at that at the moment. We don't believe that's going to happen. Let's just have a quick look at this on the smaller time frames just as I'm here. So yeah, we are trying to catch bounces here, but they're just not working. This is a 15-minute chart. They're just really not working. So this is still a bearish chart for the time being. We look at this on the monthly for any kind of significant move now, because this is make or break time for the Dixie. And I imagine that on the first pass we do catch a bounce, and we're just waiting for it at the moment. Because it's a monthly chart, it's extremely lagging, so it's going to take a while. But if this did bounce from here, and it did have some form of reasonable continuation, whether that's maybe 1 or 2 or more %, then that is just going to kick all these assets, you know, in the behind. They're not going to enjoy that. They'll be kicking them when they're down, basically, because they need to consolidate, and this will allow that consolidation to speed up rapidly, and maybe even areas that we don't want to see. Worst case scenario, at the end of this consolidation phase, we could be coming all the way down to this zone here, 13,000, 31% drop. If that did take place, we can only imagine how devastating that would be for some of these altcoins, because XRP at best is going to amplify that by 2 times. So we could be talking about making essentially a full retrace to basically where this began to launch from. Ethereum is probably, we'll be looking at lower 400s. I'm speaking very bearish at the moment. There's no reason for you to think that I'm expecting this to happen. We have to chart this just to put it into our heads that there's a number of things that could take place here. We are essentially at the top, aren't we? If we look at it on a weekly, we could say yes, that is a perfect opportunity. Look, pop. There's no reason for us to think anything other than this is the area to take profit at, and this is the most reasonable place for a pullback. We do have a lot of reason to bounce from a variety of levels, but it's always worth explaining. Worst case scenarios. Best case scenario, I would say, if we start to reclaim zones such as, we'll call it 19,250, and if that holds on a 4-hourly basis, then we could have another stab, another run to try and get up at the top. The Bollinger Bands are pinching here, but the rest of the indicators here, plus the volume, which is getting a little bit low now, doesn't seem to suggest that it wants to try this quite yet. It doesn't just look. It just really just doesn't look like it wants to do it. And given what we've seen with the Dixie at the moment, it should have tried harder. It should have been easier. It should have been easier for Bitcoin to do it. There's fundamental reasons why Bitcoin, other than the fundamentals that people talk about, that give it that extra push that other things don't have. One of them is going to be this Dixie. The Dixie at basically an all-time low for the year, and actually for the last couple of years. We've not seen it this low for a couple of years, which is a big deal. So that is fundamentally another reason why Bitcoin should be pumping at these levels. And also the constant printing of Tether. You don't get that with any other asset. You don't get a currency that gets minted every other day flooding into markets, unless you're talking about what the Fed are technically doing, which is why the Dixie is falling. Basically, it's because that is what they're technically doing, but not to the extent that Tether gets minted. So if you think about that, right, Tether gets minted out of thin air, thrown straight into Bitcoin, and then what are people doing? The people who are on the right side of that kind of, not scam, but tactic, they're cashing that out for real money. Tether it's not backed by anything, right? It technically has no value. It's got a use case but no value. So basically what happens is the Tether gets printed, it inflates the price, so some people on the right side of that take the money out in real money, and that Tether just gets left to float around, essentially propping up this market. It technically is, in theory, a ticking time bomb, to be honest with you, and there's a lot of people that think in the same way as me. This whole thing is a massively inflated bubble. Now what we're seeing is that there is real money going into Bitcoin, but on top of that real money, there's Tether being printed every other day in hundreds of millions, and just basically inflates the price. And if I was a big cat doing with all of that, what I'd be doing is it's essentially you're laundering. Really, it's technically laundering. You're taking that Tether, you're throwing it into a middleman, and you're cashing it out the other end as a fiat currency with general value to it. Anyway, I digress. Don't look at me and shoot me for criticizing some of the shortfalls of the cryptocurrency markets, but it has to be said. There's a lot of dodginess that goes on amongst this market. One of the reasons why we like it, because it makes it so volatile, but it is scary when you think about it too hard. Sometimes it's probably best not to think about these things, because it just leaves a giant grey area into what could happen tomorrow. I could wake up tomorrow and the whole thing is gone to 3,000, 1,000. It could happen. If something happened to Tether, if Tether got pulled off the market, if Tether got sued, essentially, prosecuted for doing dodgy stuff, it would lose everything. It would all of its value would go. And Tether's in the top 5 cryptocurrency because it's used as a stable coin. But if it really has no value, we're talking an enormous amount of market cap just being pulled out of the market one day. That's just going to transfer into everything. Everything will fall as a result of that. Anyway, I'm probably scaring you all a little bit. This is not going to get very many likes, this video, I can tell. But again, at the same time, when we're looking at Bitcoin, just Bitcoin specifically, we are holding above the 10 exponential, and currently even the 7 simple. And on the weekly, which is also going to close in a few days, you know, it's another candle at a higher level. You can't go wrong with that kind of move. So we had a little indecisive move here, and we're back green again. If this one turns red, then yeah, the confirmation would be all I need really to confirm that this is going to be a consolidation now that will probably play out over a couple of months. And again, nothing to worry about so long as we maintain above those areas. 13,000 being the bottom, everything is perfectly fine. Anyway, I've rambled for long enough. I'll leave it with you there, but thank you for watching. Hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.